So today we're going to look at how tokens are created for sale. Of course, in order for them to be able to buy these tokens, they need to exist in the first place. So it's time for us to have a chat about the birds and the bees and learn where tokens come from. You're right to guess that this comes down to something that the project's developer team do. They use the considerable powers at their disposal to create a defined number of tokens that are going to be in existence from the very moment that the smart contract is deployed to its blockchain. Accordingly, these tokens are often called the Genesis supply. You'll also hear this being called the pre-mined supply, which references the design of Bitcoin, which has a supply that grows with the number of blocks produced, which is called mining. The Genesis supply is pre-mined in the sense that these tokens were generated outside and independently of any mining-like process on the network. It didn't take the founders too long to realize that there was more that they could do with this Genesis supply than just create tokens to sell to investors. It gave them an entirely new way to self-capitalize their startup. These tokens could incentivize and compensate human capital contributions from founders and advisors, and allowed them to fund a treasury. The tokens could also be deployed to further the ends of the enterprise as a promotional instrument for user acquisitions or to create systematic incentives to direct economic behavior on the network. And that's what sets the stage for a typical token sale. A number of tokens is set up at Genesis. That initial supply is then partitioned out into allocations. The labels you see on screen represent the most common allocation uses. We'll be diving into what they mean in a little more detail later on, but before we do that, we need to understand one more critical component of a typical token sale offer. If we were to approach investors with this offer and nothing else, we have a huge problem. Remember, the primary goal of investors is to generate a financial return, and that financial return can only be generated by selling the token in exchange for some other preferred asset. But there are only so many buyers in the market at any given time, and at early stages, that number is going to be even smaller. This situation sets us up for a mad, frenzied race to see who can sell first before the price collapses, and it's a race in which everyone loses. Would-be users see the value of their token crash. That compromises the incentivizing power of the token, crashing the project economy. That strips the project treasury of any token-based spending power. The founders see their project tank. The buyers see this coming, so they don't buy the token, and the investors anticipate that. This was a huge problem with the original ICOs, but people have now learned the lesson, and so the project, in this case, would never get funded in the first place. There is a solution. The way we prevent exchange markets from unraveling in this way is to place some controls on how the tokens are released to allocation recipients over time. This gradual accumulation of tokens is achieved by subjecting each allocation to a vesting schedule. Now, vesting was already commonly used in the traditional startup world to regulate the award of equity-linked rights to employees, whether those were shares or options on shares. In the startup world, it was being applied to bring worker incentives into alignment with the long-term performance of the company. However, in our case, because the token typically plays an economic and monetary role within a project, vesting terms now impart a broader set of benefits, so it's worth specifying what these are in detail.